Well, we're going to be honest here. Who doesn't love a good knockout? The best UFC fights are the ones with some action, but in some cases, the most loved fights are the short-lived ones. And when we say short-lived, we mean really short-lived. Even though fighters usually expect to win each time they enter the octagon, victories aren't all the same. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the 15 fastest knockouts in UFC history. First up, number 15, Rob Emerson versus Manny Gamburyan. So Emerson had recently won his first UFC fight, so it was a pretty big moment for him. Gamburyan himself had finished second in the Ultimate Fighter finale, losing to Nate Diaz. But he'd won his next two fights after that heartbreaking defeat, so he was meant to be the clear favorite against Emerson. Gamburyan swung at Emerson right away, but Emerson responded with a right hand that dropped his opponent. He immediately followed with a right punch that knocked Gamburyan out cold, and the fight was over in just 12 seconds. Next up, number 14, Kearu Uno versus BJ Penn 1. To look at one of the most iconic knockouts on this list, we gotta go back to UFC 34. This is the early days of the UFC's lightweight division, where BJ Penn was a hot prospect at the time. Everyone knew of his skill in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but no one realized how lethal his hands were. After his opponent, Kearu Uno, came out of his corner with a reckless leaping kick that failed, Penn rushed Uno to the fence and connected with an uppercut that shattered Uno. The next few brutal punches earned Penn a stunningly quick knockout in 11 seconds. Let's look at number 13, Eugene Jackson versus Mark Weir. You're a real one if you know how many great finishes happened in the early 2000s. The promotion had nowhere near its current level of fame, but UFC 38 gave us one fantastic highlight. Mark Weir came out of his corner and attempted an axe kick, but it was blocked, so he launched a combination that knocked Eugene Jackson out. So, he might not have the longest career in the UFC, but his 11-second knockout will be remembered for a long time. Next up, number 12, Gray Maynard versus Joe Veras. Gray Maynard may no longer be in the UFC, but he leaves a fantastic history as one of the best fighters in the promotion who never won a title. While he's best remembered for his epic fight with Frankie Edgar, Maynard also has one of the best knockouts in UFC history. Maynard entered the octagon off a tremendous performance on The Ultimate Fighter Season 5 and rushed at Joe Veras with a powerful left hook that knocked his opponent to sleep instantly at UFC Fight Night 11. So in just 9 seconds, Maynard cemented himself as a force to be reckoned with. Coming up next, number 11, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Alan Crowder. Jairzinho Rozenstruik has risen in the UFC ranks in recent years, and while he's currently ranked in the top 10 in the heavyweight division, he first made waves in 2019 with this crushing knockout at UFC on ESPN Plus 12. Rozenstruik tagged pretty boy Alan Crowder with a jab as his opponent stepped forward and promptly dropped him on the canvas. Crowder was finished after a few follow-up punches. While this is far from Rozenstruik's only remarkable knockout, it's no doubt the fastest at just 9 seconds. Now for number 10, James Irvin versus Houston Alexander. We saw James Irvin knock out Houston Alexander in just 8 seconds at UFC Fight Night 13, Florian versus Lauzon. Irvin landed a Superman blow to Alexander right after the bell rang, and the Sandman showed no mercy and landed 2 more punches to put an end to the fight. Despite being the underdog, Irvin didn't even break a sweat in earning his 14th professional victory. Up next, number 9, Makwan Amirkhani versus Andy Ogle. Makwan Amirkhani and Andy Ogle fought on the preliminary card of UFC on Fox 14, Gustafsson versus Johnson, on January 24th, 2015, and boy, what a fight it was. This was Amirkhani's UFC debut, and it was quite a memorable one. He wanted to end things quickly, so he sprang with a beautiful flying knee that landed on Ogle's head, similar to Jose Aldo's versus Cub Swanson. Amirkhani pounced on Ogle right away and pummeled him to the ground. Many people believe that the referee was too quick to stop the fight, but that doesn't take away from how great the KO was. Coming up next, number 8, Leon Edwards versus Seth Baczynski. Before the insane Kamaru Usman knockout, Leon Edwards has another outstanding KO under his belt. Seth Baczynski had come out with energy and momentum, moving forward and throwing several punches in the first few seconds, but he landed a front kick that opened the gap for Edwards to throw the first bomb. This landed right on Seth's head, knocking him down. It was easy enough for Rocky to finish him off on the canvas in just 8 seconds. Now for number 7, Don Frye versus Thomas Ramirez. Many of you may not remember the legend that was Don Frye, a true UFC pioneer. On February 16, 1996, at UFC 8, Don Frye faced Thomas Ramirez, a knockout artist, but he was the one who saw the lights go out on this occasion. The referee stopped the fight when Frye fired a hard right hand at Ramirez. Frye not only had one of the quickest KOs in UFC history, but he was also the protagonist of one of the quickest submissions. Up next, number 6, Chan Sung Jung versus Mark Hominick. On December 10, 2011, at UFC 140, Mark Hominick entered the octagon as the big favorite against Chan Sung Jung, but the unexpected happened. The Korean zombie only required one mistake from Hominick to win. The Canadian charged in full force, underestimating the Korean's strength, and was struck with a counter right hand that knocked him right back down. Chan Sung Jung unleashed his wrath, forcing the referee to step in 7 seconds into the very first round. Don't go anywhere, because we have the top 5 fastest knockouts next. Coming up next, number 5, Todd Duffee versus Tim Hague. On August 29, 2009, American Todd Duffee made MMA history by scoring the fastest knockout in history for a time. Of course, someone else beat him later, but he did it first. We know that heavyweights pack the most force into each punch they deliver, so it's no surprise that so many make the list. Like Todd Duffee, who destroyed Tim Hague at UFC 102 with a powerful right hand that forced his opponent to flatten. Duffee then mercilessly punched his fallen opponent until Hague passed out after 7 brutal seconds. Next on our list is number 4, Terrance McKinney versus Matt Frevola. Terrance McKinney himself didn't expect such a fantastic UFC debut. McKinney made history by knocking out Matt Frevola in 7 seconds at UFC 263 Adesanya versus Vettori 2. T-Rex launched a devastating series of punches to put Matt Frevola to sleep after the bell rang and gloves touched, and Frevola really couldn't understand what was happening to him. This was McKinney's 11th professional victory, while Frevola suffered his 3rd defeat. Now for number 3, Ryan Jimmo versus Anthony Perosh. At UFC 149, Ryan Jimmo knocked out Australian veteran Anthony Perosh with a single blow. Not a bad first fight for any fighter, let alone one starting his UFC career so close to home. It's difficult to evaluate a 7-second performance, but one thing became clear during the fight: Jimmo possesses major strength. We also saw after the fight that Jimmo has by far the best robot dance in UFC history. For real though, what a great debut. Next up, number 2, Duane Ludwig versus Jonathan Goulet. You may have heard of Duane Bang Ludwig, but may only think of him as a coach. Ludwig, despite never having been a standout, knocked out Jonathan Goulet in 6 seconds at UFC Fight Night 3. But due to a dumb referee error, this incredible KO is recorded in the records as lasting 11 seconds, despite Dana White and the UFC acknowledging that the fight should have been stopped at 6 seconds instead. Anyone with a stopwatch could confirm that the fight lasted that long, and it would truly be unfair to exclude Ludwig's tremendous feat only because of a referee error. Now finally, let's look at number 1, Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. So we come to our number 1 pick, and it's common knowledge that game-bred Jorge Masvidal had the fastest KO in UFC history, defeating Ben Askren in under 5 seconds at UFC 239. The flying knee that shot Masvidal to fame was so brutal that the ref had no problem calling a stop to the fight. The flying knee itself has earned its place as one of the most dangerous moves in the sport. Is it possible to have a faster KO than this? You might think think it's impossible, but anything is possible in a sport as unpredictable as MMA. That's a wrap for this video. Which knockout is your favorite, and which one caught you by absolute surprise? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.